The row between Kemi Badenoch, the business secretary, and the former post office chair, Henry Staunton, has deepened after Kemi accused him of a blatant attempt to seek revenge after she fired him.
Several serious allegations were made against the government, my department and its officials by Henry Staunton, the former chair of the post office, over the weekend. These allegations are completely false. It is so disappointing that he's chosen to spread a series of falsehoods, provide made-up anecdotes to journalists, and leak discussions held in confidence. All of this merely confirms in my mind that I made the correct decision in dismissing him. Mr. Staunton claimed that when he was first appointed as chair of the post office, he was told by a senior civil servant to stall on paying compensation. There is no evidence whatsoever that this is true.
Well, pretty strong stuff. And of course, if it turns out that she's the one telling Porky Pie, she'll have just lied to the House of Commons, which will get her in front of that Standards Committee, won't it?
I'd say she probably thinks she hasn't, but...
No, well, she went on to say she sacked him last month because he was being investigated for bullying, while he claims he was told to take the rap for the Horizon scandal. Responding to Badenoch's bullying accusations, Staunton said it was the first time he had heard of them.
Joining us now is former sub-postmaster Lee Castleton, a victim of the scandal who was bankrupted after his wrongful conviction. Thanks for joining us, Lee. I wonder what you make of this unholy row between the business secretary, Kemi Badenoch, and the former post office chair, Henry Staunton. Badenoch basically says he's lying because he's accused her of presiding over a system that asked him to delay compensation to people like you until after the general election. She says that was definitely not the case. He says it was. He says he was told by a senior civil servant. Now, next week, Mr. Staunton comes before Parliament at a select committee, and I think he'll be asked to name that civil servant. Who do you believe in this, Lee?
Well, the facts, that's what I believe. It's about facts. And I know that I haven't been compensated. And I know that I've been doing this now for 20 years. So bring on the compensation. No, everyone talks about it. Everyone talks about how we're going to be sped through to the end of this and nobody seems to do anything. So I would reside in the Staunton camp on that one. But I've never heard of anybody sacked for being accused of bullying either. So she states that Staunton was being investigated and accused, obviously, of bullying, but that's usually after he's being found to have been bullying. So the wording being precise would be questionable. So, yeah, I can't wait to see all the underpinning paperwork and all the detail, because whenever we do see the underpinning and detail, we tend to find that it's not quite the same as what people speak of.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, every which way we look at this scandal, the more that comes out, it's just an ongoing shambles, isn't it? I mean, it doesn't surprise me personally that the government might be saying, wow, it's a lot of compensation to pay all at once. We haven't got much money in their coffers. It's not like our economy is on the up at the moment. But what do you make, Lee, of this latest thing that's come out about the Cameron government essentially knowing that when the Post Office were doing an investigation into Horizon, when your legal cases started to be heard, they actually cancelled that investigation. Back then, they must have known that Fujitsu were able to access your systems.
Wow, if you look at the timeline, it's very, very, well, it's mind-boggling, really. You know, they spent 100 million plus fighting the GLO in court, 100 million pounds worth of taxpayers' money, having already known in 2016 that they had remote access and denied it in court. They then, if you take a step back from that, were told part of a Deloitte investigation that was done in 2014. That would raise questions about the evidence that Paula Reynolds gave in 2015 to the Select Committee. She told the Select Committee that there was no remote access, yet documents look like they say that in 2014 the board knew that that was the case. They had access. It's certainly a very big, you know, twist of vipers, really.
And Lee, how many sub-postmasters and mistresses, indeed, have received any decent compensation so far? Because if the answer to that is not many, then Mr. Staunton may be speaking the truth.
Absolutely. I mean, when you look at the facts and figures, Jo Hamilton, one of the lead claimants in the Court of Appeal, started her claims over two and a half years ago, and she has just been fully compensated 1 week ago. You know, and they started out with a 20% offer. You know, these are facts. These aren't things that are just said in Parliament willy-nilly or whatever. These are black and white facts. So the whole process of going through these multiple schemes and finding, you know, that it's so complicated and combative and argumentative and difficult to navigate. These are all sent to triers. These are all sent to delay and hold back. Anybody who's looked at the schemes can see that they're difficult and complicated and not really about sort of returning the victims to the place where they should be. It's just a fantasy.
Yeah, it seems to me that every single time we get a sort of run-on story about the horrific post office scandal, it just turns into a circular firing squad that nobody wants to take the rap. There's a constant change at the top, a constant change of someone who might be looking into something, dealing with this, doing that, and it just ends up a hodgepodge and a bugger's muddle, quite frankly.
Absolutely. The truth is that every single time someone makes a change, that either the Department of Business or the paymasters at the Treasury or whomever doesn't like, they are removed as a minister. You know, it's happened so many times all the way down the line. Every time we start to make ground where people are being treated like people, you know, real people being treated properly, every time that happens, we get this same circular movement of people being sacked or moved on or just got rid of. And this has been the theme all the way through, and it just delays all the time. Like I say, it's 20 plus years for some of the group, and it's over, you know, well, it's 20 years for me too. I mean, it's too long to be fighting. It's tiresome, it's hard, it's difficult, and it's life-changing.
Of course it is. I'll tell you what you need, Lee. You need ITV to make a new drama about how the government is delaying compensating you all for the post office scandal, because that seems to be the only way to galvanise this government. So ITV make this drama, as you say, after the best part of 20 years of this scandal. Suddenly, the government's all over it like a second skin and saying along the way, oh, we're going to compensate. It's time to pay these people and pay them now. I hadn't realised that there were so many of you still in the situation that you are, still waiting for this compensation. What do you make of the government saying, oh, we're going to sort this out once and for all, and then not doing so? They're dragging their heels, aren't they?
It really is. You know, you're talking about 3 schemes. The 3 schemes are very complicated, and so many people are just being put through, you know, terrible traumas. It's disgusting the way that the claims are being fought, and we shouldn't have to fight anymore. God, we fought so hard to get where we are. Getting traction.
Lee, sorry to interrupt, Lee. Before you go, tell us your. We don't really know your story. What were you accused of? What was your? Were you sentenced? Were you fined? What happened to you?
I went through a civil court. It took 2 years to go through. I ran out of money, and I ended up in the High Court myself, representing myself where I lost. And Post Office were awarded £321,000 worth of costs, which bankrupted me. I lost everything. My family and I were traumatised by it, and we were abused in the street. My daughter and my wife both had anxiety problems. My wife led on to epilepsy. My daughter then struggled with an eating disorder. It's been so traumatic, and yet still we have to fight.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
It's so unfair,
the injustice
so
of it all
unfair.
is so ridiculous.
Well, listen, Lee, all the best, and I hope you get your compensation damn soon. If not, we'll come back to you. Great to talk to you.
We'll never give in.
Good. Don't you do that. Thanks, Lee. Thank you very much.
Sam, what is going on here? This sort of exchange of, you know, accusations, allegations between Mr. Staunton and Kemi Badenoch.
I mean, I was astonished, actually, to watch that statement in the Commons yesterday. I don't remember watching a statement where a cabinet minister has gone to war from the dispatch box on an individual in that way, and also referencing various media organisations. It was quite... Kemi Badenoch could have got out of that statement. She didn't have to give that statement because there was a cabinet meeting at the same time yesterday, and she could have sent a junior minister along, but she wanted to go. She wanted to make that attack, and I think that tells you a lot. Actually, I think what is important here, and what we are forgetting because of this, is we hear from Lee the tragedy that's happened to people, the way people's lives have been destroyed. And this row is a complete distraction from the fact that the government hasn't paid the money.
So this guy, Staunton, next week, as I say, goes before a select committee.
Yeah.
And, you know, to be fair, his story doesn't revolve around Kemi Badenoch in terms of him allegedly being told to delay compensation, get the election out of the way so the Tories don't look bad. It doesn't revolve around Kemi Badenoch. It's a mysterious, unnamed civil servant. Now, apparently there's word that this civil servant may be named in some email that he has so far failed to produce. But that's going to be the big question at the Select Committee, is who is this guy?
Well, it is. I mean, there's two things. Does this email, is it still traceable? Obviously, it was sent on I think it was sent on the post office email. Is it retrievable on that server? In which case there is proof to back up his story. Obviously, he no longer works there, so he may have difficulty accessing that. But for him to go before a Common Select Committee next week, he will be expected to be absolutely telling the truth. And then you have the situation where we have Kemi Badenoch saying one thing in the Commons and him saying another to a Common Select Committee. You know, both of those things are very, very serious things. We saw what happened with Boris Johnson when he was perceived to have been lying to Parliament.
Right, exactly.
And so it's very, very serious for Kemi Badenoch. If there's any evidence that she isn't absolutely bang on what she said yesterday.
I think 100% that she feels, it may not be
true. She must be confident in what she says.
Telling the absolute truth.
Absolutely.
Because of that extraordinary performance.
Absolutely. So it'll be very interesting to see what he says next week.
Yeah, no, it's a very, very bizarre situation, and both of them can't be telling the truth simultaneously. That's for sure.
That's exactly
Dan, thank you.
That's exactly it.